You can find this PowerPoint presentation and the accompanying essay if you follow the links below. Many textbook introductions to architecture contrast Western styles with the so-called Ottoman style. Blair and Bloom, for example, in The Art and Architecture of Islam from 1250 to 1800, referred to Sinan's work as being part of a concerted Ottoman policy of establishing sovereignty through the erection of distinctive buildings in a distinctly Ottoman style. So here we want to compare the domes of St. Peter's Basilica and the Suleymaniye Mosque to assess the extent to which the domes have things in common and to what extent they differ. Both domes were conceived during the period known as the Italian Renaissance. Both look back at earlier classical structures. In the case of St. Peter's Basilica, the models for inspiration are the Pantheon and the Basilica of Maxentius, the Temple of Peace, in Rome. In the case of the Suleymaniye Mosque, the Hagia Sophia. But there is an often repeated argument that so-called Islamic architecture is simply a revamping of the past, that unlike the Italian Renaissance, it goes into decline. The Fletchers, for example, characterize Turkish architecture, along with other non-Western styles, as being non-historical, that is, stuck in time. But the Hagia Sophia was originally a Christian church, and it was later altered to make it look Islamic. So when Sinan copied the overall structure, he was in fact copying a Christian structure. St. Peter's Basilica, ironically, does the opposite. As a copy of the Pantheon, it is a copy of pre-Christian structures. But that is the fundamental idea behind the Renaissance, a revival of the art of ancient Rome and Greece. Bramante's original design for St. Peter's Basilica is an attempt to diverge from the traditional basilica plan, whereby, after Constantine's modifications, the floor plan takes the form of a Christian cross. Bramante adopted a Greek cross floor plan, where, in keeping with the fascination with contemporary knowledge of geometry, a square encloses a set of 5 domes, one large dome surrounded by 4 smaller ones over the chapels. But whereas the dome of the Pantheon arises from the massive drum structure below the external cornice, Bramante sought to give prominence to the dome by making it higher. It now reaches a height of 136.57 meters, including the lantern, and has an inner diameter of 42.56 meters. Michelangelo adopted Bramante's original plan by increasing the size of the 4 16-meter piers so that they could support the weight of the central dome. He also adopted Brunelleschi's method of constructing the Duomo of Florence Cathedral. That is, he built an inner and an outer shell of brick and stone, thereby avoiding the necessity of scaffolding. Seen from the outside, the dome rises from a drum surrounded by pairs of Corinthian pillars, interspersed with blind windows, and is crowned by a lantern with a ball and cross on top. Following Brunelleschi's model, Michelangelo designed a system of ribs which align with the buttresses of the drum. The interior of the dome is decorated with mosaic figures depicting Jesus, the saints, and the 16 popes buried in the basilica, lit up by 16 windows. The prevailing belief in the Catholic Church was that religious images served to remind the faithful of the Bible stories. This is a mosaic of God the Father by Semprevivo in the lantern of the dome. Giuseppe Cesari and Giovanni De Vecchi made the cartoons for the interior decorations. These designs were transposed into mosaics. So what are the differences between St. Peter's Basilica and Suleymaniye Mosque? Well, the Suleymaniye Mosque was constructed by Mimar Sinan, the chief architect of the Ottoman Empire for half a century, that is, from 1538 to 1588. The juxtaposition of the layout plans for the Hagia Sophia, the Bayezid Mosque and the Suleymaniye Mosque clearly shows the influence of the Hagia Sophia on the later designs. But John Freely points out how the Suleymaniye dome differs from the Hagia Sophia. The vast space is not cut up into sections as at Hagia Sophia, but is centralized and continuous. The goal of the open space was to provide a much extended prayer hall to accommodate large numbers of worshippers, while minimizing the number of structural barriers on the ground level, marking a significant difference with the Christian style of St. Peter's Basilica. Kostov, in A History of Architecture, draws our attention to a continuous service gallery on the handsome consoles, which shows how far Sinan strayed from the Byzantine model. Another difference between Hagia Sophia and the Suleymaniye Mosque is that in the former there are religious images dating from Christian times. In the latter there are no religious images, as the Hadith indicates that only Allah can create human beings, and religious images of human beings attempt to usurp the work of Allah. The dome of the Suleymaniye Mosque forms a semisphere, as its height is half of its diameter. It rises to 53 meters above sea level and has a diameter of 26.5 meters, which makes it much smaller than St. Peter's Basilica, and it is lit up by 32 windows. 2 semi-domes along the central axis lead to the Qibla, but the sides are broken into a grander cascade of domes, including 5 on either side of the main dome following the central axis. In conclusion, although there are clear differences between the domes of St. Peter's Basilica and the Suleymaniye Mosque, which result from different religious attitudes, most notably regarding decoration and floor space plans, rather than classifying them as types, it is better to see them as individual creations of extraordinarily talented architects.